All right, everyone. Looks like we're live. I'm having some technical issues with Sharon's stream, so I'm coming to you, and good thing it's only a 10-minute cast. But what I really wanted to focus on today, since we promised everybody a little bit of hope, is I picked up this book. I'm working on a triple-negative breast cancer project, and I picked up this book called A Survivor's Guide to Triple-Negative Breast Cancer. All you need to know from diagnosis to treatment, recovery, and beyond. And it's by Michelle Solak-Edwards. She's a survivor since 2016. I actually found her through LinkedIn, so that was kind of cool. And there's some supplementary information that I picked up also, 100 questions and answers about triple-negative breast cancer. I am a patient that lives with a chronic autoimmune disease, so while I don't understand what it feels like to sit in a room and hear the words, "you have cancer," I do understand what it feels like to sit in a room with a doctor where, the day before you were feeling fine, and then the next day your life changed because you collided with a diagnosis. And I think all of us can agree that when you find yourself in these situations, the first thing you think is, what can I do? Where do I go from here? And the person sitting in front of you, the doctor, the nurse, whoever it is that's delivering the news, is typically the one who you're expecting to get almost a download of information from in order for you to map out your next steps. But anyone who's lived through either a chronic diagnosis or a cancer diagnosis, an acute diagnosis, even someone with severe heart disease, those answers aren't just not forthcoming, but they're unique to every patient sitting in front of that provider. So I think the onus really falls on the patient, unbeknownst to the patient, to start to figure out who you are now that you've been given a diagnosis. And I feel so much that so many times we underestimate or undervalue what that means to people living with disease. Total Health being the largest provider of free oncology medical education, our audience really are those providers. They're the doctors, the nurses, the nurse practitioners, the PAs, the surgeons, the radiologists, radiation oncologists, pathologists, everyone involved in that multidisciplinary team that works alongside you as you walk through your cancer journey. And we so many times feel like we've got the patient in mind because ultimately the information that we're providing these teams is designed to change what they do in practice when you're sitting in front of them in clinic, incorporating the latest evidence-based information. But I think what we fail to really kind of grapple with is your lived experience outside the clinic. Okay, now that I've gone and I've gotten the information, I've had a surgery, I've gone through my first dose of radiation, I've had my first cycle of chemotherapy. Life is changing so dramatically, so quickly, and that feeling of the loss of control that you had the day before you had your diagnosis can sometimes be so overwhelming. So as I venture to understand life as a patient diagnosed with triple-negative breast cancer, one of the things I don't want to underestimate and I don't want to undervalue is how you live outside the clinic, how you're feeling mentally, how you're getting through the side effects of these very difficult regimens, how you're navigating. Sometimes you've got these incredible breast centers that have a nurse navigator that's with you at almost appointment one. And then sometimes you're kind of navigating on your own and filling in piecemeal referral offices. The experience of women going through a cancer diagnosis is very different, even if you live in the same town, because it factors in who you are culturally, what if any language barriers you may have, what if any financial barriers you may have. And so to think that we are educating a whole group of providers without considering the patient's journey or the patient's lived experience, we're only telling half the story. So this cast, with just a few, about 6 or 7 minutes left, I really want to dive into how you become a patient that gets inspired by hopefulness, because the whole point of these tea talks are really to kind of give you a little break from your daily to-dos, whether you're a patient, whether you're a provider, an advocate, a caregiver, anyone involved in walking through and navigating this disease, where the goal here is to give you a little bit of space. And so today I want to talk about how you become an empowered patient. I am a person that believes that information is power. In fact, it's one of our core values at Total Health. We really stand on the fact that if you know what you're in for, if you know what options you have, if you know how those options may affect the goals of care, you are seated in a position where you're able to make shared decisions with your healthcare team, which is something that's a little bit of a new concept. I often use the story that my mom, who's 75, is very different from me, who's 45, is very different from my son, who's 19. We all go into the doctor's office with an extremely different attitude on who he or she is sitting in front of us. My mom is from the generation of the doctor tells you what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and you do it. There is no negotiation, there is no suggestions. They are trained to tell you exactly what to do. I'm of the generation where I really want to know as much as I can, because I want to see how I can fit in and maybe get back some of those controls. And my son is of the generation where he goes in fully prepared to say, this is what I want. I've been studying about this, I've read about this, and this is what I want. Doctor, can you make it work for me? So when you encounter any type of diagnosis, something that you're going to have to manage significantly, really what I want to encourage you to do is start to seek out people that have walked the journey before you, resources like books, like podcasts, support groups, advocacy organizations that can give you much more wealth of information about your specific diagnosis and the journey that you're preparing for. And I think what we also underestimate is our own intuition. So many times in that period of losing control, we think like, that's it. We almost have to surrender everything. But the reality is once you work through all of the elements of the psychology behind being a patient on the other side of a diagnosis, you can come to a place where you feel prepared to start making decisions to regain that control and to step surely one foot in front of the other. I really encourage you to find ways that you can educate yourself, that you can work with other people that are part of your care team, and you can start asking questions. I mean, this is another area where I think the empowered patient is also the inquisitive patient. So ask, Doc, I was reading about X, Y, or Z, or I saw an article that said, or I saw a broadcast or a podcast or a video or a TikTok that said I should be doing this or I should be doing that. Don't be afraid to ask. The people on the other side are here to help save your life. They're here to help provide you the resources you need to live well and to live well beyond your diagnosis. So I think in the spirit of giving you the opportunity to infuse hopefulness in your diagnosis, I want to again encourage you to become an informed patient, an educated patient, and an empowered patient. Share as much as you can about your own journey with people that are starting and with people that are maybe along the way looking back and saying and needing someone that has a positive viewpoint about what's coming up for them. Because we really are in this together. I mean, nobody goes through these things in isolation. So be ready, be open, be empowered with what you can get your hands on to learn. But I think for the most part, never forget that there are groups of people around you. You don't even know, people like us that are in the background helping every step of the way, encourage and empower the people that are there to work with you to help give you the best possible outcomes you can get from your disease. So if you're facing triple negative breast cancer, I think this is a great book. I actually just started it. I think it's extremely comprehensive, A Survivor's Guide to Triple Negative Breast Cancer. The Young Survival Coalition and the Triple Negative Breast Cancer Foundation put out or co-sponsored this 100 Questions and Answers. They have a book like this for nearly every type of cancer. I encourage you to get it. It's almost like, if I can be so crass, whatever fill-in-the-blank cancer for dummies. It helps to give a very strong plain language summary of what you are experiencing, and then supplement these types of things with all the other things that we've talked about today. Hopefully our next Tea Talk has more than just me, that we solve all of our technology issues, and that we get back to a place where we are in a discussion format. Don't forget, this week too, we are joined by a breast cancer oncologist. And I look forward to seeing you again on the next episode of Tea Talks, which will be on Wednesday at 2 o'clock. Thanks so much for joining.